That was pretty scary where both of my tattoo shops closed. I had to continue paying the bills. I don't want to take out a loan because I don't want to go into debt. So, but
Right.
I'm a tattooer and I'm resilient. And so I'm, working my ass off. I'm tattooing and I'm gonna survive and bounce back.
If you had the chance to pick the brain of a 30-year tattoo veteran who's owned 3 successful tattoo shops and has made a massive impact on the tattoo industry and on the lives of the artists that work with him and all of his clients, if you had the opportunity to pick their brain about business and art and life, what would you ask them? Well, today you get to be a fly on the wall of a conversation that I had with Myke Chambers, who has been tattooing for over 30 years. He has shops in Philadelphia as well as North Carolina. We talk a bit about some of the damage from Hurricane Helene and how he prepared for it and how he's handling it. But we also just talk about, what are some of the principles, the guiding principles that has helped him grow and sustain his business over decades. And I just think that valuable tattoo business wisdom is something that everyone can benefit from, even if you're not a tattooer. Obviously, I'm excited to share this with tattooers. And now, speaking of being a fly on the wall during this conversation, Myke was in his tattoo shop. There were some tattoos happening during the podcast. There were some conversations in the background. We're going to try to mitigate that in the editing, but consider this your invitation to sit next to me and Myke as if we were all hanging out in a shop, talking business, talking shop, and you get the real, raw, full-on experience, ambiance, and all. So without further ado, here is a conversation with Myke Chambers. Myke Chambers, welcome to the podcast. I think we've been chatting on and off about doing this for like a year, so I'm glad we finally got a chance to make it happen.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for inviting me. And yeah.
So one of my interests in having you on is I just have felt like you are someone in the craft of tattooing that people look up to, but also in the business of tattooing that I feel you have a lot of lessons. You've been through some shit on both ends, and that's kind of what we like to share here on the Artful Dollar Podcast. A little bit of both. Sometimes we end up talking shop. That's cool too. But, maybe share a little bit of that background. Like, let's start with when did you open up your first shop?
I opened my first shop, I think it was around 2006. In Austin, Texas, called Eternally Bound Tattoo. I had that for a few years. I ended up selling it to Keith Underwood. He changed it to the Awesome Tattoo Company. And then I just packed all my stuff up and I just went traveling, guest spotting, just trying to hone my craft. So, yeah.
How does someone sell a tattoo shop? Like, was that a complicated process or was it actually kind of easy?
It's really hard to, I met Keith and he made me an offer. And I was at a point whenever I just wanted to go and be on the road full time. And it was just an offer. It wasn't like I put it up for sale and was like,
It was just the stars aligned.
Yeah, the stars aligned. I think the actual value of a tattoo shop is hard to assess.
That's kind of why I was asking. Yeah, it's really hard to assess.
It really is, because a lot of tattoo shops don't show everything. I mean, I definitely do. I pay all my taxes. I have a great accountant.
Absolutely.
So but
lots of IRS agents listen to my podcast.
Yeah. So but I mean, honestly, I'm not just saying that, but I really do. But,
because at a certain point, it almost screws you to not pay your taxes.
Well, this isn't the Wild West anymore. Tattooing used to be, it used to be a place where we could fly under the radar. We were in the back alleys, in the shadows, and, it was an underground art, it wasn't mainstream. Now, we've got Ink Master, we've got every single celebrity out here with tattoos. Tattoos are just so big that you can't fly under the radar anymore. People know what tattoo artists are making. So if you think the man doesn't know, you're sadly mistaken, and it's only a matter of time before they come knocking and are like, hey, what's going on? Especially for shop owners.
Is there any part of you that wishes it wasn't as big as it is? Wishes it stayed kind of in the back alley shadows, or are you stoked on where it is?
It's kind of both ways, you know.
Yeah.
I can really romanticize, 20, 30 years ago. But the genie's out of the bottle, right? And it's got, its negatives and its positives. And ultimately, I think the positives outweigh the negatives.
Yeah, I agree. I always tell people, like, I started tattooing 15 years ago professionally, but I was working in tattoo shops before that, and I got to see tattooing at a very interesting time. Maybe like 17, 18 years ago is when I first started working in shops. And if you got to see tattooing back in the day, like that, you were blessed. And we can complain about the changes, but it doesn't help us to do that. And so be grateful that you got to experience tattooing at that moment in time and embrace the changes that are happening, because if you don't, you're going to pay the price.
Yeah. Yeah, you really can't, hold up progress. You can't. You're going to get left behind.
How do you manage to do that? Just how have you managed to do that over the years? Like, I'm almost interested, like, tangibly, but like also mentally, I feel like it's a hard thing for people to embrace change and adapt.
Well, I've always kind of embraced change. I was always, on the next thing that I could learn, the thing that would help progress my craft, progress my business. I've never been one to be like, well, back up a little bit. I definitely was hesitant to try rotary whenever rotaries, like Swash Drive was pretty big at a point.
Yeah.
It was like one of the first big rotaries that was going around. And I was so hesitant. I didn't want to try it. I was like, I just like what I'm using. I'm using my coils. I don't want to. And a guy actually forced me to do it. He was like, no, you got to try it. I was like, I don't want to try it. And he set up the machine and just put it on my tray. And I was like, all right, I'll try it. And then I picked it up and I just like did a couple little whip shades with it. And I was like, motherfucker. I was like, it was so good. It was like effortless. And I was like, oh, damn it. And I immediately bought one. But I think tattooers just at their core are resistant to any kind of change. I don't care. You get them a new paper towel, you get like a different ointment, or you try and be like, listen, this aftercare is specially formulated, like, nah, A&D, Aquaphor.
Why? Why are we like that? Like, what is that thing and what is going on?
I don't know, man.
Is it fear?
Well, it's probably, fear. You're just used to it. It's what's comfortable. It's what you know. It's it's so difficult. It's like in my shops, I own an aftercare company, and my artists will still be like, oh yeah, go down to CVS and pick up some Aquaphor or some non-scented lotion. I'm like, yo, I got lotion for sale right here. I have ointment specially formulated for tattoos. And it's like, oh, well, I don't want to take their money. I was like, but you're going to tell them to go give it to somebody else? But I mean, in that case, they feel bad charging, a few $100s for a tattoo and then being, oh, here for $10. But that's just giving money away.
Okay, we're afraid of change and we feel bad charging money for what we're worth. It's like these kind of ingrained things that so many tattooers deal with.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I guess it would be a big general statement, but I can say
there's definitely a pattern. I'm not, there's not everyone falls into these categories, but there's a pattern.
Well, no, it's by and large most of every tattooer I've ever met. Not all of them. There's a lot of tattooers out there now that are real like about their business. They're like, I'm giving my money. They're like, I always, I would tattoo someone and I charge by the hour, and I was like, well, that totaled up to, $1,000. It's like, you know what? Just give me 800 and call it cool. That's
right.
like me.
That's tattoo artist math. Like girl math. That's tattoo math.
Yeah, that's me walking down the street, dropping $200 and going, nah, fuck it.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Well, because when the client signed up for it, they said they were in it for the hourly price, and that's what they agreed to. And then whenever they get to the rate, and you're like, all right, that was 4 hours, they're expecting to pay 4 hours. They had already agreed. And I know the logic is, well, I'm just going to hook them up so they come back. You know what? Just hook them up with really good customer service. Give them a great experience. Make them the focus of that time while they're sitting in your chair, and treat them like family, and give them a really good tattoo. And that's the best deal you can give them. That's what's going to get them to come back. Before they leave your shop, say, hey, do you want to roll that deposit over? Do you want to set up another appointment? Don't even let them get out the door without asking to set up another appointment. How about we roll this deposit over? You know?
Yeah.
Those are like, that's the real ways to keep them coming back. Yeah.
Don't hook them up with the price, because price is always relative to value. I feel like, again, a lot of tattooers, they focus so much on price, whether that's their price or the price of a machine or something like that, you know? They focus so much on price. They aren't really focused on, well, what's the value that this brings me or that I can bring my clients? And I mean, I've talked to so many tattooers that are charging $500 plus an hour, and they don't bat an eye at it, and their clients are stoked.
Well, people tend to value stuff more if they pay more for it.
100%.
And if you're like, if you tell someone, okay, this is going to be $800, and then when they're done, you're like, let's just call it $5. They're thinking, is it not worth $800? Did he fuck up?
Right. Did he not like
good?
it?
Is it not as good, and he feels like he shouldn't charge me enough? Like, you didn't like it, shouldn't charge me that much? You know, like, it's a lot of psychological things. And
yeah, I always tell people, like, when you're selling a tattoo, and I think sometimes tattooers don't even think about, they are in sales. You are in sales. You sell tattoos.
Yeah.
A few things. One is you want to build like the whole story around the tattoo, the identity, like, oh, this is going to look sick. You're going to be at the beach and this thing's going to be flowing, and you know, it's going to look amazing. You're selling them on the experience, not just the tattoo itself. And then I don't know how you feel about this. I'm curious, but I never want to ask someone what their budget is. I want to anchor the price at what I say the price is. And then if they're down here and I'm up here, we can come up to there. But if I first say, well, what's your budget? And they anchor the conversation down here, then I have to bring my price down to meet them. And so whoever says the price first kind of owns the conversation when it comes to sales.
Okay. I mean, if their budget's too low, I'm going to let them know. Sometimes I do ask people what they're, not for my booking, because my booking, I just have very, I guess, rigid pricing. I just have my prices laid out. And so that's what it is. But, you know, in the past, I'd be like, what are you working with? And be like, well, you're about $500 off. So, you know.
Right. My suggestion for tattooers out there is, to anchor the price first and say, well, what we're looking at is probably, and give them a big range, you know, probably in the $800 to $1,500 price range on the really high end, right? Anchor it high. And then maybe their budget is like $500. And when they hear you're up here, where they're like, well, maybe I could go to $700. You know, they feel comfortable, and then we can meet in the middle, you know, if that's, it's just some of these like sales strategies. There's actually a whole art form to sales. And at the end of the day, sales is not about being icky or manipulative. It's about bringing someone value and turning your offer, your service, into an opportunity for them to invest in themselves. That's what I think sales is, you know, just my philosophy around it, you know.
No, I gotcha.
Yeah. And I do like the fixed price model, you know, if it's a half day, full day, or if it's by the piece, this piece is this, like, I like that model. It's solid. Yeah. There's a lot of ways to do it, for sure.
Definitely. And I'm not saying that, like, I don't think, like, tattooing is fun. You know, it's a fun job. It's not just, you know, about the business, but the business is, you know, we have bills to pay, and it's a job. But I don't want to take the humanity out of it and be like, I'm just all about that money, you know, just got to get mine. So I do charge quite a bit for my tattoos, but then I also like to offset it with doing flash events where I'm doing like $150 tattoos that are like nice tattoos where we get, get the people in that may not be able to afford those tattoos and give them a chance, or just rewarding, clients, loyal clients to come in and get like a good deal on a nice tattoo. So we try and do
100%.
those where we try and do that where we'll have like, I have a buddy come out and he'll grill, and we'll get a couple kegs and, just free beer, free food for the community, feeding all the local homeless people in Philly.
Sure.
It's always, a good time. It's a good experience. People tend to like it. So I definitely do that. And we do charity events. We're in Philly. Actually, we're going to try and do that in Asheville. We'll get to the charities part, but here in Asheville, we're going to do a Flash Day toy drives. And in Philly, we're going to do the same thing, where we're going to do tattoos for like $150 and bring a toy. Then we're going to donate to the Philadelphia Children's Hospital. And then here in Asheville, we're going to raise toys for the local children that have been affected by Helene.
Yeah. So. I wanted to bring you on for a while because I obviously wanted to talk business and art and tattoos, but then Helene, I don't know how people say it.
I think it's Helene. It's
okay,
I don't
Helene.
know, but yeah, that's what I've heard on the news mostly is Helene. So.
Okay. And so I just also felt like that happened about a month ago, maybe almost 2 months ago now.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
And the way the news works with the election and everything, like that just disappears into the void,
Yeah.
But things are not better. Things are still rough down there. And so what's the state of the union down in North Carolina right now?
It's a little better. We now have running water. You can't drink it, and you really shouldn't be showering in it.
Okay.
Like if you're really dirty, you can go ahead and shower in it, but it's still pretty bad.
But
you can flush your toilet. They don't want you washing your dishes in it. If you wash your dishes, they want you to rinse them off in a bleach solution after you wash them. We're using hand sanitizer after we wash our hands. But so right now, derm film for tattooing is really handy because they don't have to keep their wash it,
Right.
Yeah, but so the state of things is there's extreme devastation. I was reading this morning that there's still 1,500 people still living in hotels in town. For a while, they made a mandate where no one from out of town could rent a hotel or an Airbnb. And they just recently lifted the curfew. Now they lifted it. There's people coming in, and there's still... So Asheville, the city of Asheville, if you drive around, you won't see a whole lot of the damage. Like you have to go into the River Arts and you'll just see complete destruction, which is like the town of Asheville sits here, and then I'm in West Asheville, and then the river runs and separates Asheville from West Asheville, and the river separates, and down there is where all the River Arts was. There was like a few tattoo studios, tons of art studios. It was just full of amazing, eclectic art studios and booths and little theaters and little barbecue places, and it was just like, it was amazing, and it's completely gone. Everything's gone.
No one, this had never happened before. Has it something like this happened?
No. Well, the river arch typically floods a little bit, and they know it does. It's in kind of a flood zone where a hurricane's come through before, because hurricanes tend to come up through the Gulf and come straight up and hit us. It's not uncommon for us to get some flooding. But what happened was there was a storm for like 2 to 3 days before the hurricane hit. So the ground there was just so much rain, and the ground was so wet, and the rivers were
saturated.
Yeah, it was super saturated, and the river was just already swollen and starting to flood. And then here comes this giant hurricane, and it hit us with the dirty side of the hurricane. So it was just this perfect combination of two storms back to back.
There's a dirty side of the hurricane?
Yes, there's a dirty side of the hurricane. So there's a side of the hurricane that when it spins, it throws all of the rain and all of the storms and just everything is mainly on one side.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, and we got hit with that. And then all of a sudden, every tree, like thousands and thousands of trees just got decimated. Houses are crushed. I mean, you guys saw the devastation on Instagram.
Yeah,
there was no shortage of.
Saw on Instagram, on the news.
Yeah.
And like I said, you feel disconnected from it when it's happening, and then literally 2 weeks go by, and it's like it never happened for people that aren't there. And yet I know that there's still so much going on, and I thought that'd be a great thing to bring you on to remind people that, hey, you know, one, stuff like this can happen to anyone, anywhere. Like the unexpected events, the things you cannot plan for, the things you cannot foresee. That's the real danger. That's why we have an emergency fund, right? A me fund me account instead of a GoFundMe account. You know, like having those things set up because you just never know.
Yes, definitely.
So apparently 88% of listeners have not left a review or subscribed. And I'm going to get right back to the podcast in just a second. But if you have found this episode helpful and you think that other people would benefit from listening, then all I ask in return is please just leave a quick review and subscribe. It'll take just 1 minute, and it might help other tattooers and other artists find this podcast and help them out. So please, it would mean the world to me, and it might actually make a difference for someone else. Thanks.
Backing up just a little bit, where things are right now in Asheville is, you know, utilities are back on. We have cell service. We have water to flush the toilets and stuff. But there's still like this deep, like, wound. Like, we have the first responders that were picking up body parts out of trees and all over the place of like their neighbors. Like these are local firemen that, like, these are all their families and their relatives, because this is Appalachia, you know, it's pretty far back, and all this, like, big families. It's like everybody knows everybody, and it's like there's so much pain, and like right now it's like the healing is going to take a long time on that front. There's still towns, you know, 15, 20 minutes outside of Asheville that you can't even get to by a car. There's no roads.
I heard there's like a donkey train taking supplies to some of these places.
Yeah, and it's gnarly, and people, you know, never expected it would happen. And then how do you prepare for that? You know, you don't prepare for it, but financially you can't, right? So that's what you wanted to talk about a little bit.
Yeah.
My situation, I'm sitting here at Traveler Tattoo, which I just opened. I actually opened it 1 week before the storm hit, and I did have savings. I had savings, and I took all of that savings and I invested it into a new shop. I'm like, you know what? It's not a big deal. I'll make it back. I'll build the savings up. It's an investment. You know, Asheville is booming. Like, people. Asheville is a tourist destination year-round. It's not like the beach where it's the summer. They're here for the spring. They're here for Christmas. They're here for fall. They're here for the summer, like all year. And so my other shop, Seven Swords, was just doing so good. And then I had other artists that are wanting a place to work. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do this. And this is kind of a, you know, one of my new baby here. But yeah, I got caught where I invested all my savings and I did have insurance, and I have business interruption insurance, which if you're a tattooer and you don't have insurance, and you don't have a contingency plan where you have business interruption insurance, and
anyone can get that.
Personal coverage, anybody can get it. Anybody can get insurance. Like, you don't have to be a shop owner. You can get it. You can insure your hands. Like if you can't work, you know, you got to go through the process of proving like how much you make, and that's another thing. If you're working under the table, you can never prove how much you make.
You can't.
So that doesn't work. So you can't prove how much you make. You can't buy a house. You can't, you know, do so many things, right? But I have that insurance, and right now I'm having to put together a profit and loss and stuff to file a claim. So I'm hoping I can get that. But other than, you know, that was pretty scary, where both of my tattoo shops closed. I had to continue paying the bills. I don't want to take out a loan because I don't want to go into debt. So, but
Right.
I'm a tattooer and I'm resilient. And so I'm, working my ass off. I'm tattooing and I'm gonna, survive and bounce back.
I mean, one, I'm glad to hear that you did have something in place to protect yourself. And I think that, just for anyone listening to this, anyone, whether you're a shop owner or an individual tattooer, we always tell ourselves like, oh, well, that's not going to happen. and then it happens. And there's so many tattooers in Asheville shops that might have had something in place, but a lot of people didn't. I'm sure of it. And my heart goes out. I want, that's why I wanted to do this too, is like, I want to share, we'll put some links in the show notes and description for some ways that people can contribute to help out tattooers. And that was the reason why I wanted to do this. But also for anyone that is thinking like, oh, well, I'm not in a flood zone. Well, okay, a UFO is going to come and abduct your shop. I don't know. Like, it's the thing you cannot possibly predict. That's the thing that you have to create the contingencies for. And it's hard to do that. Yeah.
No one could have predicted COVID, the lockdowns.
Right.
No one. You can't.
No one.
That's no one. You can't even imagine. And myself, when that happened, I'm sitting here going, holy crap, is tattooing over? I'm gonna have to go get like a construction job or something. I'm like, what am I gonna do? It actually ended up all turning out good, and tattooing went into this huge boom, and it was wonderful, so it turned out being cool. But
yeah, I remember that was kind of what moved me from full-time tattooing into financial coaching. And I had a ton of friends that owned shops in Brooklyn, and I owned a shop in Brooklyn, but they all had to close down permanently. They were done. They were like, we're not coming back from this. Yeah. And that was the moment I realized, oh wow, like, you can be a great tattooer. You can be smart. It's not, these were intelligent people. They weren't like dumb. No, they were smart, capable, hardworking people. But all that energy that we pour into our art, into our creativity, into our craft, we never took the time to pour any of that energy into our finance and business. And like we said earlier, like, yeah, you don't want to dehumanize it and just make it about the business. But when I hear tattooers tell me like, oh, I don't do it for the money, I'm like, well, why are you charging people? Like, it's okay to do it for the art and the money. That's what I want people to really understand, is that you're a business at the end of the day, and you have to treat it like a business.
Yeah. That's where, doctors charge for their, surgeries, but then they also do pro bono work, right?
Yeah.
There is definitely something to be said about doing charities. When
100%.
I do a lot of flash days for charities where I donate the shop cut to charities.
Yeah.
It's really hard to get tattooers to want to donate their cut, and I can't be like, guys, come on, but that's their choice, and it is what it is. But I can donate the shop cut to charities and stuff like that. So
yeah, absolutely.
But I feel whatever you give out, you're gonna get back. I like to live by some spiritual universal laws, universal truths, and one of them is the law of tenfold return, where whatever you give out, whether it's just energy or smile or kindness or actually doing something for somebody, or just your thoughts, it's going to come back to you tenfold. And I see that in my life happening all the time. It's pretty amazing. So, I mean, you can read any financial books. Like, what's the dude that went around with Carnegie? Carnegie hired him to.
Is it Think and Grow Rich?
Think and Grow Rich. Think and Grow Rich. Like all of these dudes. Like, he goes out and he interviews all of the biggest people of the time, right? Like Rockefeller and Carnegie, and he goes out for years and he wants to find out a formula for success that all of these people used, like the common denominators that they used, right? And one of them was they all contributed to charity. Like they all took a portion of what they earned and gave it to charities. And I feel like that's just a huge portion. And the trick is not doing it for the return, but knowing you're going to get the return, right?
Just knowing it.
Yeah.
And it won't necessarily look the way you think it's supposed to look or the way you expect it. And so, like, removing that expectation, doing it, and there's an element of faith. It is. It's like faith, like, oh, I'm going to be rewarded. I'm going to be taken care of. And the more you focus on how can I take care of the people around me, the less you need to worry about taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Any other spiritual rules that you live by that have served you well?
Yeah, I mean, there's cause and effect, which is essentially like karma. You know, what comes around goes around. For every cause, for every action, there's a reaction. The law of divine oneness. People just don't realize that we're all connected. And so doing something harmful or negative to someone else is essentially doing it to myself. Mm-hmm. It's hard to grasp that.
Doing it to yourself is doing it to others. Being hard on yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes we talk to ourselves in a way we would never talk to another person.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. Oh my God, if I heard someone talk to someone like I talk to myself sometimes, it's like,
yeah.
You know, and another thing is our thoughts. I was always raised like, oh, it's your actions, like guard your actions, but it's really your thoughts. That's where it starts, is becoming a master or attempting to become a master or on the journey to become a master of your mental and emotional body. So that's like not just what you're doing, but what you're thinking. And it's not that hard to do. It's about catching yourself thinking, oh, I was looking at that person and judging them and just realizing, oh, what are you doing? And then catching yourself. And then each time you catch yourself sooner until you're just not doing it. And then you start to see your life actually change. It's really crazy. It's life can look pretty shitty when you have your head up your ass.
Yeah. Wiser words have not been spoken. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't. Someone.
No, I fully agree in that. You know, I think I actually look at the game of business, and I do view it as a game. I view it as kind of this spiritual crucible, because I have to practice surrender and trust and gratitude and generosity. I have to be of service to other people, because if I don't, my business will fail. And so I'm constantly referencing these spiritual tools: compassion, non-attachment, awareness of my thoughts. Because I catch myself, I'll get in that spiral of like, oh, this isn't going to work because XYZ. I start blaming things outside myself, getting resentful, and that energy drags me down. And I'm guilty of it. I'm a human being. I'm a flawed human being. It's that I catch myself as quickly as I can. I'm like, ooh, that thought just simply doesn't serve me, and it doesn't serve anyone around me. Because I've applied spiritual principles to the game of business, it's been the greatest teacher that I've ever had in my life, besides my daughter, besides kids. Kids are the greatest teachers of all. But business has taught me quite a lot. Yeah.
I heard the other day, but I know this, is the secret to life is service to others. That's like the whole meaning of life. That's what we're here to do. We're here to be of service. And then taking that into business, into tattooing, it's like I'm being of service to people, not just with the art. It's also with being a human and treating them like a human and giving them a good experience, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I try to teach people, you know, I know social media is just such a big topic in tattooing these days, and I try to share with tattooers, like, that same value that you bring to people when they walk in the shop and you greet them and they get that good energy and that vibe, that's what gets them to want to work with you, to bring that to your social media. That way you can actually, it can be, I saw someone actually post about this, it's like, it's not social media, it's service media. How can you be a presence online that is bringing value to people, that's being of service to your followers? And when you approach it from that, you realize, oh, your page is like your storefront. Your social media page is like your shop. Your followers or people coming across your page are like walk-ins. And if you're just hiding behind that Cherry Creek flash rack of tattoos and they don't see you at all, you know, you're not greeting them. You're not giving them that same thing. Because you know, if someone walks in the shop and you talk to them, there's a good chance that they're sitting in the chair getting tattooed. Yeah. How do we create that same experience in your social media profile? So always bringing it back to marketing. But because I want people to get that marketing isn't about being cringy or, you know, smarmy. Someone said marketing is smarmy, and it's about being clear and creating connection. That's it.
Yeah. You don't have to sit here and do dances and make a fool out of yourself, and you don't have to, you know, get naked on camera to get people to engage and to boost your algorithm and do all that. You don't have to do that. You know, if that's your thing, whatever. You know, I don't judge people. I don't judge people, whatever they feel they need to do. But there's a lot of people that are like, well, I don't want to do this. I'm like, well, dude, you don't have, just like you said, show them what it would be like to walk into your shop. Let them get to know you. And I always tell my artists, I'm like, listen, what is making this person want to come to you? Out of every tattooer in this city, that's really good. There's really good tattooers. What is going to get them to come to you? What is going to get them to come to you from 3 states over, from around the country, when there's thousands and thousands of tattooers that are doing what you're doing, and you're doing it good, but there's so many people out there doing it good. The bar is so high.
Hey, Myke, real quick. I know we're almost at time. We are getting to the end. So
currently there is a online art auction that a page is getting done. They're doing it with, the Instagram is Ladies of Tattooing Worldwide. They're doing an auction. I put up an original. We'll put it in the show notes, Yeah, I put up an original 5x7. You go in there and they're just doing an auction on there that's going to support artists here that were affected here in Asheville.
Excellent.
It's going to end November 13th, so it's probably going to end in a few days. I don't know if this will be live by then, but
I think we're going to get it out on the 13th, I think.
Okay. Well, they'll still have time if they go watch this.
Excellent.
But there's other charities. There's Beloved Asheville, which is a really good organization to donate to out here, just in general. But yeah.
And I would say, if anyone listening to this, if you know someone out in Asheville, just reach out and just ask them how they're doing. You know, I think that can go so far. Maybe they need help with something, or you can just offer that support, and definitely check out whatever, you know, funds or ways that you can contribute. I think that we all need that, you know, as much as I do advocate, like, let's prepare to take care of ourselves. At the end of the day, you never know what's going to happen. There's going to be some time in the future that I'm going to need to ask for help from someone because I wasn't able to prepare for the unforeseen. And I think that we should just all have that grace for each other, for ourselves, you know?
Yeah.
So, well, Myke, it was a real pleasure getting to have you and just share your wisdom. If anyone doesn't follow Myke Chambers on Instagram, hit him up. Check it out. If you're in North Carolina or in Philly, you know, hit up your shops. What are the names of your shops now?
Seven Swords Tattoo, Philly and Asheville, and then Traveler Tattoo in Asheville.
Traveler Tattoo in Asheville.
Yep.
Check it out. And again, we'll share more on this, but we've been talking with Dan Cuban about doing a retreat at the end of next year that we're both kind of helping him with. So super excited for that. And getting to know you more and getting to work with you, man. It's a real pleasure.
Awesome.
It's an honor.
Yeah, well, thank you, and thanks for having me on.
All right, if you found this episode helpful, one of the best ways for you to help other artists is to share this episode. Leave a review and subscribe. It helps other people find my channel, and you never know what a difference it might make for someone else. Plus, I will forever be grateful for your support, so I just want to say thank you and have a great rest of your day.